In this video tutorial, I am going to discuss about colorimetry. Colorimetry. Here the colorimetry is made up of two words. One is color and other is metry. So it is a color and metry means measurement. So colorimetry is the process of measurement of color. In its simplest meaning, it's the measurement of color. And the instrument which is used for colorimetry is the colorimeter. So in today's video tutorial, I am going to discuss about colorimetry. You need to remember that colorimetry is different from calorimetry. Remember, this calorimetry is for the measurement of calories. Here see the spelling. Okay, it is for the measurement of calories of foodstuff. Okay, so before we dive into this colorimetry, we need to understand certain terminology. So to make you understand this certain terminology, I will do one experiment, and actually it is not an experiment but one situation I am going to show you. That suppose this is test tube. Suppose this is the test tube. Okay, this test tube is filled up with the 100 milligram percent of copper sulfate solution. Remember, it can be any solution. I am just taking 100 milligram percent copper sulfate solution as an example. So as copper sulfate is the blue color, so I am taking this color. So this is copper sulfate solution which is filled up in this test tube. Okay, now if I focus one light, if I let this light to pass through the solution, these are the light rays which are passing through this 100 milligram percent of copper sulfate solution. So what will happen? Some of the light will not pass through the solution. So the outcoming light, the light which has already passed through the solution, will be of the lesser intensity than whatever light we had originally passed. Now what is the characteristic of this light? You can see all rays are the parallel. These are the parallel rays. One more characteristic is there in this light that you cannot see in this diagram, is that this light is of the monochromatic. This is monochromatic light. Now what do you mean by monochromatic light? Monochromatic light, mono means single and chromatic means color, single color light. We know that white light, it is made up of multiple colors. All the Vibgyor colors are mixed up and it will generate a white light. So white light is not a monochromatic. It is not a monochromatic light. But instead of that, if you pass red light or green light or yellow light, orange light, then it will become a monochromatic light. We know that white light, it is of the visible spectrum which extends from 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. This is the visible spectrum. Okay. As you move from 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer, there are several color composition. For example, for the violet color, its wavelength range is 380 nanometer to the 450 nanometer. Then blue light, its wavelength range is from 450 nanometer to the 495 nanometer. Then we have green color. Its wavelength ranges from 495 nanometer to the 570 nanometer. Similarly, then you will get a yellow color range, then orange color range, and then red color range. The red color range starts from 620 nanometer to the 750 nanometer. So all these colors are falling under our visible spectrum. Visible spectrum means there is a spectrum which is of wide range, but only the small portion, only this much portion our human eyes can see. Okay, 380 nanometer to 750 nanometer. So here I said monochromatic light. Monochromatic means any single color light should be taken. If you are taking a blue color, then that means you are taking 750 to 795 nanometer. So this is the characteristic of this light. It may be a parallel, it is parallel rays and monochromatic light. Okay, so I can say that when parallel rays of monochromatic light is passed through any colored solution, some of the light gets absorbed, right? So I am showing this absorbed light by this bent arrows. Some of the light gets absorbed and the remaining light passes through the solution. Okay, so whatever light that we are originally passing through the solution, we call it as an incident light. Incident light. And let's say intensity of this incident light is I0. It is I0. This is the standard terminology. Okay, incident light, and the intensity of that is I0. So some of the light will get absorbed and remaining light will pass through the solution. This light which is coming out of the solution, we call it as a transmitted light. Transmitted light. And the intensity of this transmitted light is denoted by I with subscript E, IE. This is the intensity of the transmitted light. We know that intensity of the transmitted light is always going to be less than the the intensity of incident light. Okay. Why it is so? Because some of the light is getting absorbed. So the light which is getting absorbed, we call it as a absorbance. Absorbance, or you can denote it by the capital A. Or the other terminology for this absorbed light is the optical density. It is optical density. Or you can also call it by the short form OD. Okay. So here the purpose of showing you this experiment is that you must be familiar with this terminology, that what is incident light, what is I0, what is transmitted light, what is IE, and then what is absorbance and what is optical density. This understanding must be clear before we understand about the colorimeter. Okay. One more thing that I want to tell you is what is transmittance. What is transmittance? So the transmittance is simply a ratio of this intensity of the transmitted light to intensity of the incident light. So transmittance is the ratio of IE divided by I0. This is known as transmittance, and it is also known by capital T. Okay. And then what is percentage transmission? Percentage transmission is simply a transmittance, that is IE divided by I0 into 100. So this is percentage transmission. Now if you consider that you had passed here, this is the original light, so let's call it as 100%. And let's say that 20% of the light is getting absorbed. The total 20% intensity of light is getting weakened because of the solution. And so 80% of the light will pass through the solution. So here the transmittance will become 0.8 and the percentage transmission becomes 80%, right? That means what we understand by percent transmissions, that 80% of the light can pass through this solution. That is the meaning of transmittance. Now, we know this terminology about incident light, transmitted light, absorbance and optical density and transmittance. Now we can move to understanding of the Beer's and Lambert's law. So the next topic is the Beer's and Lambert's law. Now to understand this Beer's and Lambert's law, I would like to explain you in some experimental way. Okay, so for the understanding of these laws, I will do two experiments, experiment 1 and experiment 2. In the experiment 1, what I am going to do is, I am taking 3 test tubes. This is one test tube, this is second test tube, and this is third test tube. These are 3 test tubes, and all these 3 test tubes has a diameter of 1 centimeter. So its diameter is 1 centimeter. This much, this is the diameter. It is of 1 centimeter. Here also it is 1 centimeter, and here also it is 1 centimeter. Let's call this as a test tube 1, test tube 2, and test tube 3. Now, if I fill up this test tube, first test tube, with the 100 mg% copper sulfate solution. So I am filling it up with the 100 mg% copper sulfate solution. The second test tube, again I am filling it with the 100 mg% copper sulfate solution, but here, in the second test tube, I am filling it with the 200 mg% copper sulfate solution. So as the copper sulfate itself is a blue color, so when concentration rises, that means more copper sulfate is dissolved in the same quantity of water, right? So here the color will be somewhat darker than test tube 1. So I am showing it by the darker color. So here, why I had shown darker color? Because this test tube is filled up with the 200 mg% copper sulfate solution. Now in the test tube 3, I will fill up this test tube 3 with the 300 mg% of the copper sulfate solution. So obviously its color will be darker. So I am picking up more dark color. Okay, so now this is the darkest of all 3, right? And let's pass the incident light through this solution. So I am passing the incident light, that is parallel rays of monochromatic light. These are the light rays. I am showing 5 rays. The same light, the same source of light which is used over here, I will use it for the remaining 2 test tube. So I am again showing 5 rays. I am showing 5 rays because I want to emphasize that intensity of the light which is passing through test tube 1, test tube 2 and test tube 3 all are same. The light source is same. Just the change is in the concentration of the copper sulfate, and so I had shown it by the darker color. So what will happen in the test tube 1? Some of the light will get absorbed and the remaining light will pass through the solution. So as the remaining light is passing through the solution, I am showing it by the 4 rays. Why? Because its intensity is obviously going to be less than this incident light. So here I0 and this is IE. I am showing IE by the 4 rays. Okay. Here what will happen? The color is darker. So more of the light will be stopped by the solution. So more light is getting absorbed. And so what will happen? Here the transmitted light will be lesser than the test tube 1. So here I am showing only 3. Okay, only 3 rays of transmitted light. So you can say that transmitted light is less in test tube 2 when you compare it with the test tube 1. What will happen in the test tube 3? More and more light will get absorbed, and so very small amount of light will pass through this solution. So here IE. So now if you compare the transmitted light of test tube 1, test tube 2 and test tube 3, what will be your finding? That in the test tube 3 there will be a least transmitted light, and test tube 1 there will be the most transmitted light. Okay, so by this remember, here the concentration is 100 mg% of copper sulfate, here concentration is 200 mg% of copper sulfate, and here concentration is 300 mg%. So now based on this finding, can I say that concentration, as concentration increases, its absorbance, this absorbance portion is also increasing simultaneously? Yes. So as the concentration rises, its absorbance, or you can say optical density also, so its optical density increases. If concentration decreases, its optical density also decreases. So based on this finding of this experiment 1, based on this finding of experiment 1, can I say that optical density is directly proportional to the concentration of colored substance? Yes. So this is the principle of Beer's. Okay, this is the Beer's law. Beer's law states that when parallel rays of monochromatic light, passes through colored substance or colored solution, its optical density is directly proportional to concentration of colored substance. Okay, this becomes your Beer's law. Now let's dive further in this and carry out our experiment number 2. So in experiment number 2, what I will do is I am going to take 3 test tubes. The first test tube, its diameter is 1 centimeter. In the second test tube, I am increasing its diameter by 1 more centimeter. So here in the second test tube, diameter is 2 centimeter, and in the third test tube, the diameter is 3 centimeter. I am just increasing the diameter of test tube, and in all these 3 test tubes, this test tube 1, test tube 2 and test tube 3, I am filling up all these 3 test tubes with the same solution with the same concentration, and let's say I am filling it all these 3 test tubes with the 100 mg% of copper sulfate. So here I am taking 100 mg% of copper sulfate solution in test tube 1. In test tube 2 also I am filling it with the 100 mg% copper sulfate solution. So here the concentration is same, so I am utilizing the color of same darkness. And in test tube 3 also I am filling it with the 100 mg% of copper sulfate solution. So I had taken the same intensity of color. And let's carry out the same experiment. That means I am passing this incident light and I am showing as an example 5 rays. Okay, the same light will be passed through this test tube number 2 with the 5 rays, and the same 5 rays, the same intensity of the incident light is passing through this test tube 3. So what will happen? Some of the light will get absorbed over here and the remaining light will pass through this solution. Okay, so I am showing 5 light rays over here. The direction of light is from this left to right. In the test tube number 2, what will happen? Now the diameter is 2 centimeter. Here the diameter is 1 centimeter. So what will happen? There will be more interaction of this light with the solution. So more and more light will get absorbed, or its optical density will be higher. So less light will pass through this solution. So as an example, I am showing you 3 rays. Here the diameter is 3 centimeter. So now what will happen? Here it is more time, more length will interact with the light. So more and more light is getting absorbed. So minimal light will pass through and through the solution. So here you can say that as path length is increasing, what is happening to optical density? See, optical density is also increasing. So increase optical density. If path length decreases, optical density is also decreases. So here can I say that optical density is directly proportional to a path length. So this becomes our Lambert's law. So this is a Lambert's law. So what does the Lambert's law suggest? Lambert's law says that when parallel rays of monochromatic light passes through colored solution, its optical density is directly proportional to here path length. So just change this concentration word with the path length of colored substance, or path length of test tube. Okay, so these are two important laws with respect to colorimetry, that is Beer's law and Lambert's law. Beer's law states that optical density is directly proportional to the concentration of colored substance, and Lambert's law says that optical density is directly proportional to the path length of the colored substance. Now, by the colorimetry, we intend to measure concentration of particular substance. We are not interested in path length. Okay, so if we combine both Beer's law and Lambert's law, what will happen? That optical density becomes directly proportional to the concentration into path length. So this is the combined form of Beer's law and Lambert's law. Now our intention is to measure concentration. This is concentration of particular substance. We are not interested in measuring the path length. If we really wanted to measure path length, we can simply measure the diameter of test tube and we can get our answer. So measurement of path length is not difficult, and second thing, we are not interested in measurement of path length. We are interested in measurement of concentration. So if we make path length L as a constant, that we devise a rule that all the time we will use only 1 centimeter diameter test tube, then what will happen? If we apply this rule, then it becomes clear that optical density is directly proportional to the concentration of the substance, concentration of particular substance of interest, where the condition is L is constant. So we will use this formula to estimate certain substance concentration, but we know that the concentration will depend on the optical density. So somehow we have to measure optical density. So how to measure this optical density? So at that time, your colorimeter will help. The colorimeter is the instrument which can help you in the measurement of optical density. So now we will see how the colorimeter is designed, how this colorimeter is able to measure optical density, and in reality how will you measure it. Okay, so now let's look at the colorimeter. Now the anatomy or the structure of colorimetry is very easy. You can simply apply all these things that we had learned earlier in this video, and you can by yourself you can design colorimeter. So what is the first and foremost requirement for the colorimeter to function? The first and foremost requirement is the light source. We require a light, okay, and the light source should be emitting the light of wavelength which lies in the visible spectrum. So for that, first we require a light source. So in our colorimeter, the light source used is a tungsten bulb. So let's draw tungsten bulb. So this is tungsten bulb. Why we are using tungsten bulb? Because it emits all the lights of visible spectrum, equally. Now this tungsten bulb is the point source of light, right? So its rays are not parallel, plus it is also not monochromatic. It is emitting all the lights, all the visible spectrum light. So first we have to convert this light into parallel and monochromatic. So let's first convert it into the parallel rays. Now how these diverging rays we can convert it into parallel rays? So at the proper length, at the proper distance, if you place convex lens, then what will happen? All these light rays will become parallel. So now we have parallel rays, but still it is not monochromatic. Why? Because this is white light. It is emitting all the rays, all the visible spectrum. Now we have to convert it into monochromatic light, right? So suppose you want to convert this white light into red color light. That means you want to filter out all the remaining wavelength and only just the red wavelength to pass through. So the one simplest and crude idea is simply place a colored glass. Simply place a colored glass. Suppose if I place a red color glass, if I place a suppose I place a blue color glass over here. If I place a blue color glass, what will happen? Only blue light, the output light will be the blue light. Okay. If I place a red color glass, then what will happen? The output light will be of the red color. Okay. So this is known as filter. This is known as filter, or you can, more scientific word is monochromator. Monochromator. Now in advanced instrument, you can place prism also. So prism will split the white light into all the spectrum, and so by properly placing a slit, you can filter out the desired light. Okay. So filter, it can be a colored glass. It can be a colored glass. In the more sophisticated instrument, you can have a prism, or sometime in scientifically advanced instrument, it can be a gratings also. Okay. So now whatever light which is coming out of this filter, it is of the parallel rays and monochromatic light. Now this is our desired light. Okay. This is our desired light. So now this light needs to pass through the solution. So here we can put our test tube over here, and whatever solutions we intend to measure optical density, we can fill it over here in this test tube. Now remember, this test tube is a special kind. We call it as a cuvette. Now what is special in this test tube? The speciality in the test tube is that when you consider ordinary test tube, suppose this is the wall of ordinary test tube. This is the wall of ordinary test tube. Okay, what will happen? There will be some micro air bubbles. Micro air bubbles are there in ordinary glass. So what will happen? This micro air bubble will distort this light. So when this light rays falls on this micro air bubble, it will distort the light. That is not, it cannot be tolerated in this setup. Okay. So what happens? We have to devise a test tube which is manufactured under high pressure conditions. So by applying high pressure, all these micro air bubbles are squeezed out of this test tube. The second thing is that its wall should be completely parallel. It should not be like this. This micro unevenness should not be there. So okay, so this characteristic must be applied to this particular test tube. Third thing, it should be a scratch resistant. Okay, as you need to use this test tube multiples of time. Remember, we had kept the path length constant. Okay, path length constant. So we have to use this test tube multiple times. It should be durable. So there should not be any scratch. If scratches are there, it can again distort the light. Okay, so such special characteristic test tube, we call it as a cuvette. So this is the place of cuvette in which we fill up the solution which we want to measure its optical density. Now this light will pass through this solution, and this transmitted light will be of course it will be of the lesser intensity than this incident light. Now we have to measure this light. How we can measure this light? The measurement of light is difficult. So first we need to convert this light into some another energy form which is easy to measure. So how to convert this light into another energy form? So here we can keep a photocell. Suppose this is a photocell, right? This photocell is nothing but our silicon or solar energy. We know that by using silicon panel or solar panel, we can convert solar light into electricity. So similarly, this is also light. When it falls on the silicon plate, it generates electricity. So here, this will generate electricity, and we know that the measurement of electricity is very, very easy. So this electricity will be measured in the form of voltage. So this is a voltmeter. Now the problem is we want to measure optical density, the whatever light which is getting absorbed, but instead of that we are measuring the transmitted light. We are measuring this voltmeter is if you think sensibly, this voltmeter is in a turn, it is measuring a transmitted light. Okay, but what we actually wanted to measure, we wanted to measure this absorbed light. So for that, here computer chip is there which do certain complicated maths. And what it will do, this instrument is producing this incident light. So this instrument knows, this computer chip knows that what is the intensity of this I0. This, and by this readout device, this photocell and voltmeter, it also knows that what is the IE. Okay, and I0 and IE will decide what portion of the light is getting absorbed. So by applying the mathematical formula in this computer chip, it will give out reading of the optical density. So this is the setup of colorimetry. This is the setup of colorimetry and how it measures optical density that I told you. And this is the inner anatomy of the colorimeter. So the next question arises that, okay, we know the inner anatomy or inner structure of colorimeter. Actually, if I am provided colorimeter, how I will able to measure the optical density? So that is the topic of next video. In the next video, I will show you how you can actually measure optical density. So in the next video, you will learn how actually you can measure optical density. But suppose you know the optical density. Suppose you know the optical density of certain solution. Suppose I tell you that I have 100 mg% copper sulfate solution. This is just an example, okay? Suppose I tell you that I have 100 mg% copper sulfate solution and I measure its optical density and it is coming as a 0.5. It is coming as a 0.5. Remember, optical density has no unit. It is unitless entity. Optical density of 100 mg% copper sulfate is, suppose it is 0.5. Okay. Now I give you second solution, for which I don't know the concentration. Concentration is not known. But of course, you can measure optical density by using the colorimeter. And let's say its optical density is coming as a 1. Again, it has no unit. So you can easily you can estimate what could be the concentration of this solution. So what could be the concentration of this solution? For 0.5, if it is 100 mg%, then for 1, it is, of course, it is going to 200 mg% copper sulfate solution. Okay. Suppose now I tell you if optical density is 0.62, then what will be the concentration? What will be the concentration of this copper sulfate solution? Okay, what will be the concentration of copper sulfate solution? So now it is become difficult. Why? Because at this place it was exact double, so you could carry out the mental calculation. But in this case, we require certain solid mathematical formula, right? So we can think like that. If optical density is 0.5, if optical density is 0.5, then concentration is 100 mg%. Then concentration is 100 mg%. Then if optical density is 0.62, then what will be the concentration? So we do the calculation like 0.62 into 100 mg% divided by 0.5. If you do this calculation, you will get your result. So let's do this calculation. So the answer is 124 mg%. So this is your answer. So let's convert this into mathematical formula. So what is 0.62? 0.62 is the optical density of the solution under test. So it's the optical density of test. What is 100 mg%? It is the concentration of known solution. It is the concentration of known solution. And whenever some solution, its concentration is known you beforehand, before measuring optical density, we call it as a standard solution. We call it as a standard solution. Why? Because the standard solution's concentration, standard solution is made up in the laboratory and its concentration is known before measurement of the optical density. So if in the lab you take 100 mg% copper, 100 mg copper sulfate powder, and you go on adding DI water to make up a final volume of 100 ml. Okay. So at that time, as you yourself had prepared this solution in the laboratory, you know the composition of this solution. So at that time, concentration is already known. So at that time, you know that this solution is a standard solution. So what is this 100 mg%? It is the concentration of standard solution. So C for concentration and subscript S is for the standard solution. Divided by, what is this 0.5? 0.5 is the optical density of the standard solution, right? So optical density of the standard solution. So if you carry out this calculation, you will get your answer. So what is this 124 mg%? It is the solution under test, okay, for which we want to know the concentration. So this result will give you concentration of test. Okay, so let's rewrite this formula in some better way. So concentration of test is equal to optical density of test divided by optical density of standard into concentration of standard. So whenever you want to measure concentration of any colored substance, you can simply apply this formula. But there is one problem with this formula, and that problem we have to address. Can you guess what is the problem with this formula? Okay, so suppose I take a pure distilled water, pure deionized water, and measure its optical density. Remember, in deionized water there is no any copper sulfate. There is no any copper sulfate solution. Remember, I am taking copper sulfate solution as an example only. You can take any color solution as an example. So I am taking this deionized water where no any copper sulfate solution is there and measure its optical density. So what will happen? See, here I had filled up with the deionized water. So what will happen? This, because of this glass, because you had filled up with the DI water, when this light will pass through the DI water, some of the light, some very minute amount of the light is still going to get absorbed. Okay, so even DI water has also certain optical density. It has also power to stop certain light. Okay, or there may be a glass also. There may be some impurities in the glass. There may be some artifact in the glass also, which can give rise to some absorbance, some baseline absorbance. Okay, so suppose you take a DI water and its optical density is, of course, it is not going to be 0, but very near to the 0. Let's say it is 0.001. So this optical density of deionized water, we have to deduct it from the optical density of taste and optical density of standard. Why? If you don't deduct it, then your result might be wrong, because even DI water has certain optical density. So the correct form of this formula will become concentration of taste is equal to, we have to remember, deduct the optical density of deionized water from taste, optical density of taste, as well as optical density of standard. So instead of optical density of taste, I will deduct optical density of this DI water. And here, as there is no any analyte in the DI water, we call it as a blank solution. So optical density of taste minus optical density of blank divided by optical density of standard minus optical density of blank. So instead of taste and standard, we have taken taste minus blank and standard minus blank, and the remaining thing in the formula becomes this. So this is the formula. This is the formula for the finding out concentration with the help of optical density. And we know that optical density can be very easily measured with the help of colorimeter. So this is all about theoretical aspects of the colorimeter. Of course, you have to remember this formula, because this formula will help you in the measurement of various analyte in the blood, plasma, or urine, or any other body fluid. So you have to remember this formula. Okay. In the next video tutorial, I will teach you how to measure optical density with the help of colorimeter, and also I will teach you about how you can apply this formula to certain colorless substance, for which you need to measure its optical density as well as its concentration. So if you have any query or confusion, please write it down in the comment section below. Thank you.